Okay, we are going to get ready to start this hood, which is in the hat family. So what you need to do, we're working in Tunisian crochet. So when you do Tunisian, if you're familiar with it, you have to make a chain first. That usually is your, just like regular crochet, your foundation. And if you want, you can just use a regular crochet hook, which I did here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to work 40 chains. So I have 40 chains that I've worked already. Now I'm going to switch to my Tunisian hook. So I have one with a cord here. You can certainly use a straight one. I just find sometimes those straight ones, the long straight ones, hurt my hand, so I prefer this one, this type of hook. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick up our stitches like you normally would with Tunisian. So, and always this counts as your first stitch, the one that's already on your loop. So I'm going to continue picking up my stitches all the way across. So I will have 40 stitches on my hook. Okay, as you can see, I've picked up my stitches here. I've got my 40 stitches and I'm ready to go. So now we're going to do the return pass. So this will be row 1. So for the return pass, okay, let's get it started. You're going to pull through 1 loop, and then for the rest of the row you'll pull through 2 to work off all of your stitches for row 1. Okay, so I've completed row 1, as you can see right here. Alright, so now we're going to work row 2, and we're going to do one of my favorite stitch patterns in Tunisian. I just love the fabric it creates. So what you're going to do is your first stitch is going to be worked in regular Tunisian simple stitch. Your next stitch is going to be Tunisian purl. So you're just going to continue to alternate between purl or simple stitch and purl stitch all the way across until you get to your last stitch. Alright, I'm at my last couple stitches here, so we're just going to finish these off and I'll show you what to do when you get to the end. So working my last stitch, which happens to be a purl stitch. So now we are in our last stitch. So what we're going to do is work a Tunisian knit stitch, and that just creates a nice and neat tidy end. So just like that, I've worked my Tunisian knit stitch. Now I'm ready to work off my loops, and you just work them off like you normally would. Yarn over, slip through the 1 loop, and then you continue to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. So the first one is always the 1, and then the rest of the row is the 2. So I have now finished row 2, so now we are going to begin row 3, and then from here on the rest of the pattern you're going to alternate between row 2 and row 3. So what you need to do for row 3 is the first stitch we worked before was a regular simple stitch, so now you need to work a purl stitch. So that one is the purl, and then the next one we had worked a purl stitch, now you need to work a Tunisian simple stitch. So you just alternate between the purl and the simple and just keep doing that all the way across. And then it just creates this fun, I think it looks like a honeycomb type effect, and it just is a really nice fabric. So I'm almost done pulling up my loops for row 3. I just have 1 more stitch to go. So we are going to again work in Tunisian knit stitch for the last one right there. So pop that guy in there. And now we're ready to work off the loops for row 3. So just pull through the 1 and then just continue to pull through 2 all the way across. Okay, so we are working our hood, and what you want to do is you'll want to continue with the honeycomb pattern of alternating between rows 2 and 3 until your we'll call it a panel right now, reaches about 23 inches long. So from here to here, about 23 inches. If you want yours a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, that's completely fine with you. How to measure, if you're making this for yourself, you'll just drape it over your head like that. And then you can determine, you know, how long or how much longer you need it or how much shorter you need it. All right, so what we're gonna do now is, gotta find my hook. So for this part, you can just use, actually for the rest of this hood, you can just use a regular hook instead of, you know, a real long, bulky Tunisian hook. So I have the same size hook that I've been using. So for this part, I did use a Tunisian, but now we're going to work these stitches off. So this is a Tunisian simple stitch, but to work it off, we're doing a Tunisian purl stitch because we're still working within the pattern. So we're going to work off the one. So now the next one I'm working Tunisian simple and just working that guy off. So I'm going to continue across. So I'm back to purling, just working my stitches off. And I'll get back to you at the end of this row for the next step. Okay, I'm almost done working off my loops. So I'm just going to finish up the last few stitches. Continuing to work in the pattern. So now I am at my last stitch, so I still work a knit stitch to work that off. And now we've worked off all of our stitches. Okay, so after working off our stitches, we are not going to cut this yet. So now we're going to seam the hood. So what you're going to want to do, so you're right here at the end. So we're going to fold it with right sides touching, just like that. So we have our right sides touching, and this is pretty simple. First we are going to chain one. Where's my working yarn? There we go, don't hide. So chain one. Now we're going to seam these guys closed. And the nice thing is with Tunisian is we already, looks like we have a nice row of stitches here, nice row of stitches here. So you're going to work through both, just working a simple slip stitch to seam that guy closed. So no sewing, less ends to weave in, always a win for me. So I'm going to insert right in this first stitch here, and then insert in this stitch right here, and work my slip stitch just like that. And we're going to continue doing that all the way across. And then when you get to the end of this row seaming your hood, then you will need to snip your yarn. Then you can break out the scissors. So I'm going to continue seaming across, slip stitching across to form my hood. Okay, so you can see I have finished seaming up my hood. I slip stitched all the way across, so now I am going to cut my yarn right here. So grab my scissors. Don't have my super cute ones, they are downstairs, so we've got these big guys. Alright, so we are done that part. Now we are going to work on the edging. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to turn it right side out. Now we're ready to work on the edging of the hood. So here we have seamed it, and I think it looks pretty nice actually, adds a little bit of a design element. This is going to be the back of the head right here where this goes. This part is around where your neck is, and then this is the front. So what we're going to do is work on the edging for the front. So you're going to attach your yarn. You can use a regular sized crochet hook, We are doing Tunisian crochet for the edging, but we're using a regular sized hook. You don't need a big Tunisian hook. I mean, if that's all you have, you know, of course you can use it. I just find that this is easier to use a regular one. So we're going to chain 5 after we attached our yarn. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we are going to work in our chain. So the second chain from our hook, working in the back bump right there. I'm going to pull up a loop, and I'm going to continue to pull up my loops, and my first chain on my hook counts as a stitch. See, sometimes it does this, so I just pull that so there's not a big gap there. So 4, here's my lesson. See, it's getting huge. See that? But easy fix. Just give her a little pull. So you're going to get in that back bump too. So now we have 5 loops on our hook, and we're going to connect these. So you're just going to work right back in that stitch. Just kind of adds a nice sturdy. So now we have 6, and I'm just again pulling this tail so we don't have a big gap. So this is going to be a little different. Usually in Tunisian you just pull through the 1, but for this first, for all of these stitches you're going to pull through 2. So here's 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So really simple. Now we're going to do purl stitching across. So you're going to have your yarn in front, your working yarn, Tunisian purl stitch, and just working that first bar there. There's 1. And I like doing purl stitches for edgings because it tends to lay flat. Sometimes Tunisian likes to curl, and you don't have that with purl. And it just kind of adds a little bit of a finishing touch, I think. So we're just going to purl all across in the bar stitches. Now to connect it, you don't need to purl. We're just popping that stitch just like normal, pulling up a loop, and now we have 6 loops again, and we're going to do 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2 all the way across. And for the next row you're going to purl again. So you can see why we don't need a big long Tunisian hook for this. And we are using the same size hook, a J or a 6mm, so that has not changed, just the length of the hook. And I'm going to connect it just like that, and then just pull through 2. So I'm going to continue to work my edging all the way around the front of the hood. So you're just going to continue working all the way around until you get to the end there. Okay, I'm almost done my front edging here, so I'm just going to finish up the last few rows, working in the purl stitch or Tunisian purl stitch. So I am finishing up my last row on part of my edging of my hood. So just working in the Tunisian purl stitch, and then we'll have to do one more row just to finish this off. You have to work off the stitches a certain way in Tunisian. Well, I guess you don't have to, but it looks better if you do. Whoops, pulled through too many loops there. There we go, easy fix. Okay, so now I'm going to work off these loops, and I'm going to do it working in the purl stitch. I'm going to keep up with our pattern. So there's the 1. Here's the second one. I'm just going across. And then I just want to connect it right here, just so it gives it a nice finished look. So pop my hook in there, And now we finish that off and we're going to snip that. Let's get some scissors. And we have finished that part of the hood there. So this is the front. And now we need to work on the bottom part. So we're going to do the same thing. So what you're going to do, so now we're going to finish up the bottom part of the edging. So I'm going to attach my yarn right here on the bottom. And we're still working in Tunisian, and you can still use a smaller hook. So we're attaching the yarn, and see, it's a nice clean edge to work from. So that's one of the nice things about Tunisian. So we're going to chain 8. Okay, and you're going to work in the back bump of your chain, a second chain from your hook. So you're gonna, until you have 8 chains. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this guy, 8. It's looking a little wild there. Just have to tighten him up. And then we're gonna go right back in, so then you'll have a total of 9 loops. So 1, 2, 3. And we're just going to do the same thing as we did before, is you're going to pull through 2 instead of 1 for the first one, and then the rest, of course, you do 2. And then we're going to do Tunisian purl stitching again. And you're going to do the same thing, just working all around the bottom of your hood, just to give it a nice edging, and it'll cover your neck. Never really thought about wearing a hood before, but other than on a coat or a sweatshirt, but making just a separate one, I kind of like the idea of it. Especially because I wear glasses a lot, and sometimes when I wear hats, it's not that comfortable and my neck isn't covered. So I hate having a cold neck, so this is kind of a new thing for me. I'm thinking I'm liking it. I might look silly. My kids will probably like disown me for wearing it, but you know what? When you get older, you just don't care. You want to be warm. Alright, so I'm going to continue working my edging for the bottom. And then I'll decide whether I want buttons, a button, or ties. I'm kind of undecided about how to finish this off. So I'll just see. I'll figure it out. Sometimes I just have to see it and then I'll just think, this will look better, or still undecided. Okay, I'm almost done the bottom part of my hood here. So I'm going to finish up this last row of my Tunisian purl stitches. And then we're going to work these stitches off. And I think what I've decided is to add some cute little ties to the end of this hood, to the ends of the hood. I was thinking of buttons, but I just wasn't calling out to me. You know, when you look at something and you're like, I just wasn't feeling it. So ties it is. I mean, if you want to add buttons instead, you know, certainly feel free to do that. This is your hood. Please, you know, customize it to how it best suits you. You be you, as I always say. So we're working the last row here. And now we're going to work off these stitches in Tunisian purl stitch. So there's the first one. I'm going to keep on going across. I like doing the, as I said before, the purl stitching for edging because it really does help with curling. So if you're making a project in Tunisian and it's curling, you know, just add a purl edging, and even if it's just, you know, like 4 rows, it really makes a difference. It really helps with that problem. Alright, so then I'm just going to connect this right here and snip that. Looking through a camera, I don't know where to put my scissors. Alright, and then we have finished the edging of our hood. So here's the top part and the bottom. So now we're going to get started and work on the ties. Okay, so we're going to get ready to add some ties to the bottom of this. Now if you wanted to add a button, you know, you could certainly just make like a little, what I would do is just make a chain, slip stitch in the chain just so it looks neat and tidy, and then you can make like a loop and then sew the button on the other side, and then, you know, one of those loopy enclosures to secure your button. But we're going to do ties, at least for mine. I feel like ties, it's calling to me. It says it needs some ties instead of buttons. So what I'm going to do is attach some yarn in the corner here at the bottom. I'm using a different color. I feel like, you know, this is a lot of like a mauve-y pink, so we need something, a contrast. So we'll do a darker pink, I guess. It looks a lot brighter on camera than it is in real life, but anyway. So we are going to make a chain. So I'm not sure how long. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here's my chain. I decided to chain 40, and we're going to add a little bit of interest to this chain so it's not just, you know, this looks kind of terrible, I think. So we're going to jazz it up, fix it up. So what we're going to do now is I'm yarning over, I'm inserting my hook into the 3rd chain from my hook. I have 3 loops. I'm going to pull through 2 of them. Going to yarn over again, insert my hook right back in that chain. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So now I've created a little like bubble thing at the end of my chain. Now I'm going to slip stitch back into my chain. So 1, 2, 3, get back in there. 4, 5, and maybe we'll do 6. So I could continue chaining up, but I want to have some more fun going at the bottom of my ties. So we are going to, let's do chain 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now I think I want to do a flower. So what we're going to do is 1, 2, 3. I'm going to skip 3 chains and work a double crochet in the 4th chain from my hook. Now I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch right there. And I do have another video of just making flowers, like embellished, you know, as you can add. I actually added them in one of the hats that I made. Or you could make a keychain. You could make clovers, 1, 2, and now you chain 3 again and slip stitch again, but we're gonna make, I like flowers. So we're gonna have 5 petals, so now we have 2. So we chain 3, double crochet right back in that stitch, and we're going to chain 3 and slip stitch right back in that stitch. So now we have a 3. This looks like it could be a clover, so if you were making a green hat and you wanted to have a St. Patrick's Day type theme, you could certainly do that and add that to the bottom of your hat, your ties. So we chain 3, but I want a flower, so I think at least 5 petals qualifies as a flower, I guess. So now I have 4 petals. Working on my 5th, chain 3, double crochet. So you can see this is pretty fast. You're not cutting any yarn, anything like that. You're just working at the end of the chain. Alright, so we have 5 petals. So now I'm going to go slip stitch back in my chain wherever I can, you know, get my hook in there. It's really no, you know, sure and fast count with this. You just, wherever you can fit it. So I'm going to slip stitch right back up that chain. So now I am back, so I have a little flower. Here's my flower. Here's my little hangy thingy. Called a petal, I don't know. Alright, so I'm going to chain 10. Actually, let's make that longer. So you can just kind of play around with it. Let's chain 16, why not? So now we're at 16, so I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to make my little bubble thing again, working in the 3rd chain from my hook. There we go. And I'm going to go slip stitch right back in my chain. And I'm going to make another flower. So you can, I'm going to add, I guess, 5. I'll have 3 bubbles and 2 flowers. You could just do all bubbles, you could do all flowers, you could do 1, you could do none. It's completely up to you. If you decide to not do any, I do recommend when you make your chain, as long as you would like it, your tie, then just slip stitch back into that chain, because it just, you know, it looks nicer than just a chain like this is all kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look that nice. It doesn't look that finished or polished, I guess. So I'm just going to slip stitch back up my chain here. So I now have a shorter bubble, longer one. So I think I'll make a longer flower, so maybe we'll chain 20. So I have my 20 chains. So I'm yarning over, we're working a double crochet in the 4th chain from our hook to start our first petal, and then you'll chain 3 and slip stitch right back in that chain. And I'm going to chain 3 again, double crochet again, then we'll have almost 2 petals, chain 3, slip stitch in that center chain. Whoops. Got a tangle in my yarn. So we're going to chain 3. This is some reclaimed yarn I'm using. I guess I probably had started something and abandoned it, didn't like it, and so I took it apart, and it's a little kinked up. But we will get a nice little block when we're done, and I highly recommend blocking your projects when you're done. After you've weaved in your ends, I think it just adds that special finishing touch to your project, so everything looks, you know, really on point and nice. But, you know, if you don't want to block, then, you know, certainly that's up to you. I block everything. And I like to block by washing my project, either hand washing it or just putting it on a gentle cycle, like in a pillowcase or a delicates bag in the washing machine, and lay them out flat to dry. If I'm using acrylic and it's especially stiff, I might put a little heat to it. So now I'm going to slip stitch back up my chain as I am talking about blocking. But I will, as far as heat, I will put like a towel over top. I'll have a towel underneath and then a towel over top. And then just get an iron and iron it gently to kind of just help the yarn to relax a little bit. Or if it's acrylic, that would help, as they say, kill it. Because acrylic, if you put too much heat on it, it will totally kill it. It'll melt it. But sometimes acrylic, I'm sure you've noticed, is a little bit stiff. Might not feel that nice to work with, but when you kill it, it helps to relax the fiber a little bit, and then it's, you know, becomes pliable. Now you don't want to kill something too much, because then it might be way too drapey, unless that's what you're, you know, looking for. But if you just want to soften it just a little bit, you know, then I would recommend that. And the towel is to protect it so you don't literally, you know, kill it, melt it dead. So I'm gonna, I think, add one more. So I have one more bubble there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And yes, I have melted acrylic before. I was stupid and made a hot pad using acrylic yarn, thinking, yeah, that's gonna work. So yeah, I went to use it, take something out of the oven that was quite hot, and yeah, melted that sucker, burned it. Yep, so yeah, don't use acrylic yarn for hot pads, pot holders. Do not recommend. Cotton all the way. So I'm just going to finish working my slip stitch up this yarn, or up my chain here, and once I get to the top of this guy, then I'm going to go right back to my original chain right here and just slip stitch. And so now I have my whimsical little flowers and bubbles, or you could call these leaves, you know, whatever you want to call them. Embellishment, doodads, whatever. So I'm going to continue to slip stitch up, and then I will make another tie for the other side. Okay, I'm almost done working up my chain here. So I think I have 2 more chains to go, working my slip stitch for my first tie. And then what you'll want to do is then repeat it for the second tie, because you know, certainly want 2. So I have finished there. So now I'm going to snip my yarn here, just like that. And also I've decided, I've gotten inspired, because since I've used a different color yarn, you know, it'll be a little tricky to weave in this end and hide it. So I thought what would look cute is if we add like a little flower right here at the bottom. So that's what we're gonna do to go with my flowery tassel. So we're just going to make a cute little flower, and I'm going to attach it right there, and then you'll be able to hide these guys a little bit better when you're doing your finishing, when you're weaving in your ends. So to make a flower, if you so want to do that, or you could also, you know, sew a button there if you want, or you could just, you know, not put anything there. But we're going full on whimsy, why not? So we're going to chain 4 and then double crochet in our first chain, chain 3. So it's just like we were working at the end of our long chain, but we're just doing it with a short one, making a quick little flower here. So we'll slip stitch. So now we have one petal. You see this yarn's all kinked up there from that abandoned project. I do that a lot. I call it recycling. So I'm making my other petal. I've chained 3. I double crocheted in that same stitch. Now I'm working a chain 3, and then I will slip stitch in there, and I need to make 3 more petals. So this is a really quick project. I mean, if you just wanted to make a flower, let's say you needed a quick little gift for a little girl, you could whip up, you know, a flower like this and stick a little, you know, plain little barrette behind it, a bobby pin. You know, if you wanted to jazz up, have a, you know, a bobby pin. I've even used flowers when my kids were little, before holes were popular. I would use flowers to patch holes in their jeans, for the girls, of course. I have 2 girls and I have a son. My son did not want flowers. But they can be a versatile little thing, or you could, you know, put these on a different hat if you wanted to. Alright, so chain 3, our last petal here, work our double crochet, chain 3 again, this yarn, it's like curly almost. Alright, but once we block it, it'll be all relaxed. So we finished our flower. So now I am going to leave a little bit of a tail for sewing. I know I don't like to sew very much, but this, you know, you got to sew it on. You just got to do it. Whoops. Alright, so now we have made our little flower. So I will attach my little flower right there, right where my tie is. And then that'll be easier to hide the tail from my tie. So go ahead and make your other tie, make your other flower if you so, you know, desire, if you want a tie, or I mean, you want a flower. And then block your hat, weaving your ends. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Thank you so much for watching.